If you have been a longtime fan of the Slenderman franchise, then you're going to be very pleased to know that as of today, we finally have the official trailer to the upcoming Slenderman movie. And right now on this video, we are going to be dissecting, analyzing, and breaking down the events of the trailer to further understand as to what is happening. So without wasting any more time, let us begin. So obviously we have courtesy of Sony and of course Screen Gems, the Slenderman movie being produced and made. Now the events start to take place around the woods. Now the overall plot of the film is centered around a group of girls that go off and venture out and trying to figure out the mysteries behind all of the sudden disappearances in their town. So the trailer basically opens up with us having to be in the woods, and there seems to be somewhat of like an ominous tone going on. If anything, this definitely reminds me of the very first Slenderman game. Now there is a woman standing out in the middle of the nowhere, and as you guys can see, we have tombstones all around here. So maybe she's staring out onto the tombstones. Maybe those are her friends. Maybe those are people that she knew. And very weirdly enough, as we continue in the trailer, we get to see more or less of these tombstones, and behind it is a massive forest. Now, as we continue to go on forward, there are the group of girls that I just mentioned. Now again, it looks like they're maybe huddled up around a graveyard, perhaps maybe again some friends, some relatives, people they knew are all of a sudden gone, they're dead. And I think this is going to play a key role in the girls banding together and trying to figure out what's going on. So as we transition forward in the trailer, it looks like there are a group of people huddled around, and with that we see police officers all around. So perhaps maybe this event here is occurring after one of the disappearances, or maybe something happens to where someone ends up missing or someone ends up dying, and everyone within the town, as you can see, multiple people are trying to figure out as to what is going on. So as we transition further in the trailer, there is a school bus, and the girls are looking out. They're trying to more or less understand as to what is happening. Perhaps maybe their classmates are going missing. Very, very ominous, and this is a very ominous trailer. So right now we have another shot here of police officers and deputies stepping in the forest. So what I'm understanding and getting at here is the fact that the forest is going to be heavily featured as one of the main places to go if you want to figure out, you know, the answers as to all the mysteries that have been occurring in this town. So as we continue forward, we get to see how more or less they step into the forest, and again, very reminiscent to the first game. Unlike the first game, however, there aren't going to be any notes, I would assume, that, you know, certain people are going to have to find, but there are multiple people, presumably cops, in the forest trying to more or less figure out as to if some of the people that ended up disappearing are in the forest. Perhaps maybe reports come in that they've seen the people go in the woods. Very ominous, very mysterious, and here is what I find very interesting. So there is a woman standing out, and she's staring out into the forest. And with that being said, it looks like her environment around her is going to play a huge role into her psyche, because it's going to mess her up big time, especially when coming face to face with the Slenderman, as we are going to transition forward in the trailer. So keep this in mind, that the forest is going to be a place where I think many people are going to have to go in to find out the answers as to all the disappearances that have happened. So obviously transitioning from the town and different areas of the town into the forest. As we transition forward, we get to see how they're pretty much more or less talking about the disappearances, daughters, people's daughters, and everyone just suddenly just, you know, vanishing out of thin air. And these little dolls, or these little figures hanging, is very disturbing, because it doesn't look like any other doll or any other, you know, object that a child would have in their possession. It looks like actually these objects are hanging from their necks. So as we transition forward, as you guys can see on screen, there are many different depictions of the Slenderman being drawn. We have, you know, photo shots of the woods. We have certain areas where we get to see tentacles coming out of this very tall man that seems to be wearing a suit. But in this trailer, it seems to be a tad bit different than how we remember in the games. But just like the games, we get to see how all these pictures are mounted on this wall, and nobody seems to understand why. As you guys can see, as we transition forward, this woman seems to have closed the door. Maybe perhaps she notices that she's either being pursued by something, or something is within the house. Now, again, I do believe that some of these characters are going to play a key role into unlocking more or less of the lore behind the Slenderman, but this is what really has me stumped. So we've never really seen this occur before in any of the games, and that's the fact that there is like this shadow just slowly creeping up from underneath the doorway. And it's something unexpected because we've never seen that happen in the games before. So maybe the way the Slender Man operates in this film is going to be much different than how we remember in the games. But we also get to see here how the woman is peeking through her door, and there seems to be somebody walking up the stairs. Now, this could either be a friend, a relative, or maybe the Slender Man, but either way, she seems to be peeking, and just like this shot here, there is an ominous black object, or, you know, this shadow coming up from the doorway, and there's a shadow coming up the stairs. So as we transition forward, we get to see how this girl seems to be very petrified, very scared, and she also seems to be in a position where she's very concerned. Now, this girl here seems to be in a state of, you know, just complete and utter shock. And judging based on her eyes alone, she looks like she hasn't slept. Perhaps maybe the Slender Man is torturing her from the inside in terms of, you know, twisting and warping her mind. And she seems to be one of the only characters in this trailer that seems to be panicking. Now, having to look at her surroundings, it looks like she's at a hospital, so maybe this is going to be the events transpiring after she encounters the Slender Man. But more or less, I would have to say, in my fair judgment, it looks like she has experienced the Slender Man, and now she's just going through, you know, her own trials and tribulations and trying to get him out of her head. So obviously, perhaps parents are trying to cater to her and figuring out what's going on. Now, this is what I find interesting. So this woman here seems to be writing something out with a marker. And as we transition in the trailer, once again, we have people in the woods, they have flashlights, and they seem like they're looking for the Slender Man. And again, as you see here, people are running away. Perhaps maybe they came across the Slender Man because they don't seem to be in a state of, you know, having to seek out answers. They seem to be in a state of concern. So here, once again, we see a couple of characters having to, you know, perhaps maybe keep their mouths shut from allowing the Slender Man to hear them. So perhaps maybe the Slender Man has different abilities in this film than how we saw in the games, because obviously, as you guys can see here, the door seems to be rattling. So the Slender Man can't really get inside, but these characters here seem to know what's going on. So once again, the girl is writing something out with the marker, and it's eventually going to spell out the word him, in which we are going to get into in a little bit. But this is what I also find very mysterious. So we have a strand of hair. Now, what this hair reminds me of is actually the way the Slender Man is in terms of being lengthy, in terms of being very skinny, and this more or less reminds me of his tentacles. Even though it's a woman's hair, there seems to be a man in this, you know, particular situation about to cut her hair. He's either brushing her hair or he's about to cut off her hair, but either way, she has some very, very long hair here. So obviously there's a scene here involving her, and there's another scene here where this guy seems to be going crazy. Now, in connection to the maggots and all the stuff that we see here, perhaps maybe this is something going on within their minds. And we see another female having to be tortured here. And now this is another shot that I find very disturbing, but at the same time very interesting, because there seemed to be like this black gook coming out of her eyes, coming out of her mouth, and assumingly enough, this is going to be one of the victims of the Slender Man. And I think that, judging based on what we see, these little tentacles coming out are perhaps from the Slender Man. And going back to this woman here, she spells out him, which again is a huge sign that she has been in connection with the Slender Man. This man here commits suicide, which is very weird, but then again, it could be because maybe he's experienced something mentally with the Slender Man that causes him to commit suicide. And also another shot here. So we're in this classroom, again, some of the main characters having to be featured. Now, this character here seems to have a dissection knife, and she seems to be looking at it, and perhaps maybe she can't take the pain anymore, she can't take the torture, and what she does as an end result while being in lab class is she takes the object, as you guys can see here, and just immediately just stabs herself. Now, as she stabs herself, I don't really think that's blood. I don't know if it's just me, but all of the stuff, all of the residue that seems to be, you know, coming out and splashing on this other girl's face, it's black. It doesn't seem to be red in nature. If it was blood, you would know that it's blood, but it's not blood. It doesn't look like blood. It looks like it's sort of like a black gook, and very concerning as we continue to, you know, just scroll on in here. because this girl here seems to be very concerned. But she does have black gook all over her face, and we don't really know why. But as we transition forward, this is the most interesting shot of the entire trailer. This woman's hiding behind a tree, and out in the distance, we see the Slender Man for the first time. And the reason why this is so important is because perhaps this is the domain of the Slender Man. And as we transition forward in the trailer, this woman seems to be very concerned, and right just when you thought it would be all over, we finally get our very first shot of the Slender Man right around here. Now, this is the Slender Man. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about this, because he doesn't seem to have like a suit on, judging based on what I'm looking at here. He doesn't seem to be wearing a suit. Maybe perhaps his arms are getting in the way, or his hands. But he seems to grab onto the woman, and then from there, as he grabs onto the woman, she seems to fall back. And as she falls back, she seems to be in a very, very shocked-like state. So perhaps the Slender Man grabs her, he tortures her mind, and as she's staring up, you know, at the sky, obviously the sky it's a bright day, we see someone emerging from the woods. And this is very wacky to me, because as the police arrive, we don't really know what's happening, other than the idea that this girl seems to be in a very, very trans-like state. I mean, we have certain images and shots here of like maybe her anatomy's being warped. There's another disturbing shot here of perhaps maybe, you know, her nervous system, like her eyeballs are getting penetrated. Very disgusting stuff. Obviously, Reckons of the Woods. And right as the trailer ends, we get to see the Slender Man standing in between a tree, and we have the girl. Now, the girl, I don't know if she is, you know, in a state of shock. I don't know if she's a survivor, but you see her and she doesn't look normal. And just as the trailer cuts to an end, we get the Slender Man logo. So I think as a conclusive statement, this movie is definitely going to be something to look forward to, because it brings you back to the games. Although we don't know too much as to what we can expect, it seems to be a very interesting movie, and these girls seem to be all affected, but more or less mentally, I think, than physically. But either way, I want to know your thoughts down below, guys. Post your comments down below. What are your overall thoughts on this trailer? What are your overall thoughts on the Slender Man film? Post your comments down below if you guys are new to the channel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, guys. I mean, I really cannot wait for this, because I love horror, and I really cannot wait to see what they're going to do with this film, because regardless of what they're going to do, it's going to be fun. So post your comments down below, guys. If you guys are new, punch that subscribe button, turn on all notifications, tune back in for more, and I'll be seeing you all down in the comment section below. Have a great day, guys. Peace.